Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Mess. So today I got a fun and exciting episode of you guys this evening because we're going to be talking about the Star Fox PC port and the fact that it's updated to a new version, bringing in a ton of new features, quality of life improvements, and just taking what's already, in my opinion, the de facto best way to play Star Fox 64 and making it that much better. And this series moving forward is going to be called Big Decomp Energy. And before you hit the comments down below and talk about decomp, recomp, static recomp, and PC port, it's just the title of a playlist. There is nothing else in the deep meaning as far as I'm concerned. But honestly, Harbor Masters absolutely nailed the brief when it came to porting Star Fox 64 to PC when I talked about this maybe 3 months ago, but now the new version is here. It's going to support more versions of the game, including the Japanese ROM, which I'm playing today. So if you want to participate in the Lilat Wars and not Star Fox 64, you're going to be able to do that. There's going to be a ton of new graphical improvements, just overall an improvement over the original version we talked about on the channel. And if you can't tell already, it should be plainly obvious. This game is absolutely a visual feast as far as Star Fox 64 is concerned. You can bump the internal rendering resolution, you can go 16:9, you can make sure the heads-up display and all that data goes to the edges of the screen, so it's not going to be locked to 4:3. I played through the original, I did a review, and honestly this new version just hits in every way the original did, but just makes it that much better. And just so you know, I will leave a link in the description below to the GitHub page, which is going to list all of the different improvements. I will mention a few in the video, but there's probably over 3 dozen, so I'm not just going to list them out. You can definitely just pop in and take a look for yourself. But I will mention some of the top note items. Obviously, you're going to be able to get the voices from both Lilat War as well as the Japanese version of the game, which I'm playing here and I'll let you listen to in a bit. You're also going to get a ton of different new cheats available if you just kind of want to play around with the game. Additionally, there's going to be beta sound effects options and other beta options for different versions of Star Fox 64 reincorporated in. There's going to be a whole new developer mod option in there, so I'm sure soon you're going to see people do absolutely ridiculous things with Star Fox 64. And that is one of the most exciting things about these PC ports, decomps, recomps, and static recomps is it allows developers to go in and just do a ton with the game that was never available before. There's an entire event hook system that's going to allow developers to kind of pivot around what Star Fox 64 is. Now, if I could say one thing I'd love to see out of a game like this would be a full VR conversion, being able to play something like this on Quest 3 with full range of motion as far as the camera is concerned moving your head. That would be absolutely epic in my opinion. But you leave me a comment down below and you tell me if someone's going to modify Star Fox 64 to add or change something, what would it be? Because I'm sure we have a lot of votes, and honestly, I just love playing stuff in VR in my spare time, so it's something I would absolutely just gravitate towards, pun very much intended, because we are in space. But honestly, you cannot fault just how good this game looks in the PC port version. I've dialed up the internal rendering resolution, I've set it at widescreen, but you can make this thing whatever you want. If you just want to play a modern PC version of this in 4:3 standard definition aspect ratio at 480p, you can do that. You can dial it up, you can dial it down, you can make it whatever you want, and that really is the most fun about these projects. You get to dive in and make the Star Fox 64 experience that you want to play. And don't get me wrong, I love the original, the Nintendo 64 version, as well as playing it on the Mr. FPGA core, but it's one of those things, why not have more than one version of a game and with some quality of life improvements? Because I genuinely think stuff like this brings these games to a new audience. Of course, if you grew up with the Nintendo 64 and played Star Fox 64, you can probably still hang with the original cartridge. But think about something like this. If I put my nephews in front of this game and told them to play it on a Nintendo 64, they'd probably think it just looked a little bit too old and didn't control well. But if I put them in something like a PC and allow them to play the port version of this game from Harbor Masters like we are now, I think I'd get a lot more traction out of their attention. So that is why these things matter. It's not just for us, the original fans of the game, it's for future fans of the game to discover it with a lot of modern trappings, and that is just absolutely awesome. And I love the bosses in this game. If that just isn't Johnny 5 from Short Circuit, I don't know who it is. I always thought it looked like him, and I love the animations as far as him saying bring it on with his hand and finger there. And of course, with all of the internal rendering resolution bumps and quality of life improvements on the visual side of things, you just see details out of this game that you probably never saw before. And that's also a fun thing about the ports and recomps. You get to see and notice details that you probably didn't see on Nintendo 64. Let's do a soundtrack sample, including the new Japanese voices that are available if you bring in that version of the ROM. We'll do 45 seconds, but don't go too far because I got a lot more Star Fox 64 to show you and a lot more of the improvements to talk about, because trust me, it is basically a laundry list of everything you could throw at this game. But here comes the music and I'll be right back with more.
ライラット系第4惑星コーネリア。かつては宇宙平和のリーダー的存在だったこの星も、ドクター・アンドロフの恐ろしい発明により
It sounds absolutely incredible, and I love the Japanese voices. Kind of gives it a completely different tonal vibe as far as the severity of the actual language is concerned. Not to say the Japanese sounds severe, it just sounds a little bit more dramatic and a little bit more serious compared to the North American voices, just being a slightly bit more cartoonish. And as far as sound is concerned, there is an option now for 5.1 surround sound. I don't have the ability to capture and master that currently, and it's one of those things. I don't even know how YouTube really treats 5.1 surround versus stereo, but if you want to set this up in your living room, or if you have 5.1 surround in your office like I do for mastering different things, you can go ahead and get that support out, which is just going to be a ton of fun. But as we cruise around this level here in full 3D, I just love how all of the image blends. You do have that fog that was inherent on Nintendo 64, and I think it's really important that it stays here, because that really is the overall vibe of what Star Fox 64 looked like. And I appreciate when these PC ports and recoms take the overall vibe of the original and just make it look better, because you don't want to switch things up so much that it doesn't really feel like the game that you know, love, and remember from Nintendo 64. You just want a better version of it, and that's what we get here. All of that really soft image in the fog that gets sharper and comes more into your field of view as you get closer with your ship. It just has a very nice image to it. But of course, you can kind of play around with basically everything. You can adjust the level of detail. You can move where the heads-up display is independently of the aspect ratio. You can just basically do whatever you want. Of course, because this is a PC port, you can bring whatever controller you want to the mix. You can use something like the Xbox Series X, which is my usual go-to controller, or you could even bring something like a flight stick in from a flight sim and set up Star Fox to have that full flight sim setup as far as the controls are concerned. That would just be a ton of fun as well. But as we kind of just pan the camera here, even in the areas that have very little graphics, just the star field with those ships, it just looks absolutely incredible, and that really is what matters. And there's a ton of bug fixes as well. Not really going to go over all of those, but the original PC port did have some bugs in it. The developers have gone in and basically eliminated all the ones I noticed in the first playthrough. And of course, if you can't tell already from the footage, you're getting a better frame rate out of it and everything else, and that definitely matters. Now, if there's one thing I would say doesn't look as good as everything else, it's going to be the close-up 2D elements of the game. That's nothing against the PC port or recomp of Star Fox 64. The assets are just low resolution, and you'd have to go back in and basically redraw them in a higher resolution to make them match all of the 3D elements. But of course, now because this is a PC port, it does have that modding hooker in there as well. I'm sure you will see in the future people going in and redrawing those elements, because of the left and right look good, but that little blob that's supposed to be a nebula in the middle definitely looks a little bit muddy. But we're going to do the second soundtrack sample, maybe my favorite level in the entire game as far as the music is concerned. We'll do 40 seconds, and I'll be right back to show you a bit more and explain how you can install this in your system today. But enjoy! Awesome music, and I've loved the drum beat in the background, how it swells. Definitely has that space opera vibe going on, because Star Fox 64 has always felt to me like 10% inspired by something like Star Wars. Now, of course, any game that takes place in space that has ships is going to get that comparison, but there's something about the music that hits maybe like a 10-15% John Williams score kind of vibe to me in all of the best ways possible. And I do love the first-person view as well. Don't use it all that often, but it is even prettier looking here in the PC port of the game. Now, if you do want to install this, all you need to do is go to the GitHub link down below and download the most recent version as far as the releases are concerned. When you load it up, it's just going to ask you to load in whatever ROM you would like. It'll use the 1.0 or 1.1 versions of the ROM, and 1.0 is apparently new this release. And if you want to play Lilat Wars, you just load up the PAL ROM. If you want the Japanese one, you load that up, and if you want North America, you know what to do. The game will just basically then recompile everything and launch into it. And if you hit F1, you'll get all of the enhancement options. Not really talking about a tutorial on this one, but just go through all of those options and set it to whatever you'd like it to be. And as far as controller binding is concerned, at least on the Xbox Series X pad on Windows 10, it automatically binds it exactly how I think it should be done. But you can now invert some of the camera options as well in the new version of this game. And again, this came out about like 14 hours ago as of the recording of this video, so it is still day of. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of things in it that we're going to discover as we go along. But honestly, I've been talking on the channel a lot recently about how decompilations, recompilations, and PC ports are going to be the future of retro gaming and retro gaming preservation. I 100% believe that, because these games just absolutely excel when they've been decompiled or recompiled or ported to PC, giving us a brand new way to play an absolutely classic game. Star Fox 64 never looked this good unless Nintendo decides to remake the entire game for Switch 2 with completely new graphics but the same game. This is probably going to be as good as it ever gets, and that's 100% good for me, because this is stunning and I think you're going to really enjoy it. And don't worry, I've got some more videos coming up soon, as well as all of the different decomp, recomp, and ports you can play that were from Nintendo 64 on PC. Leave me a comment down below and tell me, what do you think of this one, and what is your favorite recomp or port? And if you are in the US, hope you're having a great Memorial Day weekend. But I'm going to fly right now, pun very much intended, and continue on my holiday, because I broke it up to come into the office to talk about this new update. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.